I learned a lot of what I know from Sam Evans, and he is now a billionaire. He's got a $1 billion software company. And what's quite reassuring is to know that the lessons that I learned from Sam, over the last 7 years in my entrepreneurial career since I started, have turned someone into a billionaire. And what I'm going to do in this video is share with you these big lessons that I've learned from him so that you can apply them to your life and your business to ultimately become more successful. And I know that these things work because they've made me into a 8-figure entrepreneur, but more importantly, they've turned Sam into a quite literal 10-figure entrepreneur. That's $1 billion, right? Which is interesting and exciting. And the first one is all to do with second order consequences. Second order consequences are basically to do with the idea that actions have consequences, but consequences have consequences. And when you make decisions and when you do things, there is a ripple effect through time where, like, if you take an action, obviously you can see what happens after that action. So for example, if I go out into the sun and don't wear sun cream, then I might burn my skin. And that would be what we call a first order consequence. But there are also second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th order consequences as well, where, for example, if I go out into the sun and I don't wear sun cream, then I will burn my skin. And that could be the first order consequence of that. But then the second order consequence of that could be that I get skin cancer. And the third order consequence of that could be that I die. And the fourth order consequence of that could be that my business fails, right? Obviously a bit of an extreme example, right? But what Sam taught me to do is think in second order consequences and to basically try to think through as far down the line as you can throughout time what the ripple effect of your actions today are going to be. Now, if you compare this to a game like chess, for example, this makes a lot of sense, because what chess players will do when they make a move is they'll calculate, when you think of a chess player moving like 5 moves ahead or 10 moves ahead, what that basically means is they're considering all these little variables and outcomes, and they're considering the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th order consequences of that move so they can better strategize. And this is quite hard to do because it requires you to project an abstraction of time and consequence. And it's tough. It's difficult to do it. But, like I try and do this all the time in my business, where if I'm making a change to a product or a funnel or a team member I'm hiring, or I'm firing someone, or I'm doing something in a certain way, I'm always trying to think through at least like 3, 4, 5 iterants throughout time to see what happens. And once you do this, you can basically predict the future, and it's pretty cool. So that's the first thing that I learned from Sam, that I learned how to do. The second thing I learned from him is something called the general's perspective, which is a really great way of dealing with pain. Sam talked about this in his mindset module in his course Consulting Accelerator, which is no longer available. So I'll do my best to explain it. But what you can do, which is a really cool thing to do, when you're in the thick of it, without trying to quote KSI, when you're in the thick of it with basically being in pain, and when you're in this really emotional state, let's say you're in business, you're running your company, and let's say you're really up against it. You've got loads of deadlines, you've got loads of people relying on you, you're exhausted, you're knackered, you're burned out, you're emotional, you're tired, and everything sucks, and you're really under a lot of pressure. What you can do is adopt something called the general's perspective. And what that basically is it's where you take a third-person view of yourself, which is actually surprisingly effective once you get the hang of it. So when you play a video game like Skyrim or any third-person video game, what you can do is you can actually do this. I've practiced this enough to the point where I can actually visualize this. You can visualize yourself as if you're looking over your shoulder, and you can basically take a minute to step out of yourself and take a third-person perspective on the situation that you find yourself in. And you do this through meditation, you do this through a lot of practice. But if I get really emotional or really tired or exhausted, or if I'm under loads of pressure, and it's almost too much to be in my body right now, what I can do for a short period of time, not for long, is just take myself out and just look at myself as if I'm a third-person observer and get this third-person rationality. And the way you do this, and I'll give you the rundown real quick, because it's tough to learn to do, but if you can learn to do it, it's great. You shut your eyes. Okay. So you're sat where you're sat now. You don't have to do this now, but you can do it later. You're sat where you're sat now, or stood where you're stood now. What you do is you go over to the corner of your room and you look at your office, or you look at what the setting is. And then you take like a mental screenshot of that setting. You go and sit back down, you close your eyes, and you try and go back to where you just were. Like, remember the image of exactly what you just saw. You bring out the little details, little colors, little nuances, and then you imagine yourself sat there. in this spot. And then what you do with your hand is you raise your hands up, and in your mind you're watching yourself raise your hands. And it won't be very vivid at the beginning. You'll not be able to hold your attention much longer. But once you get the hang of this, I know it sounds really strange, but you actually can take yourself out to the third person, and it becomes an incredibly valuable tool, because when you're exhausted and when everything's just not going your way and you just need like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to be rational and to step out so you don't make these mistakes, you can look at yourself in the third person. And the value of this is being able to kind of like step out of your mind. And you can be like, dude, this guy's really emotional and he's really about to make a mistake and he shouldn't do that at all. And you can kind of advise yourself in this very strange and messed up way. And I find that it works really well. The third thing that I learned from Sam is that business is all about the product. And that, the way that you really win and the way that you gain long-term advantage is through your product. Now, in business, I think it's Warren Buffett who talks about this, but Sam quotes him, talks about having a moat. And a moat is basically something that protects your business, that helps you fend off competitors and keeps the castle safe, basically, using archetypal terms. And a lot of people, their moat in business is their marketing. They try and use funnels, they try and use their ads, and they try and use their offer and their messaging as their moat. The problem with that is everyone can copy that. And, anyone who has a brain can go to Google Ads Library or Facebook Ads Library and just sort of copy word for word, whatever someone's doing on their ad platforms. What your competitors cannot copy is your product. Or they can try, but they're never going to make it as good. And the reason that the product is such a valuable moat is A, because it's not copyable, although it is, people can rip it off and try and copy and steal it, but not really, right, if you're keeping it up to date. But B, because it's what actually matters. So, the real advantage in having a good product is you actually provide value to your clients, which means that everything in your business gets easier. Product is like a lubricant for all systems in the business. And that's like a car engineering term, right? So you'd use lubricant like WD-40 or something to like grease up things, like make them move better. And that's what a product is. Your offer will be better if your product's better. Your funnel will work better. Your ads will work better. Your outreach will work better. Your sales team will work better. Why? Conviction. If you think about all these marketing assets and sales assets that you build, the exponent, the truth north of the effectiveness of these systems is the conviction that the person has when they're recording these things or when they're making them. And if you feel like you have to lie on a sales call, or you have to lie on a funnel, or you have to lie on an ad, then people can tell, and your performance on your marketing assets won't work as well, especially your sales team. Like, try having a crap product and then building a sales team around that. Like, you have to hire psychopaths who don't care about ripping people off, basically. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is that there's more leverage in systems and science than there is in shiny objects in things like ads and funnels and client acquisition. Business really is just is nothing. It's kind of like this abstraction that ties together a lot of things. And in your business, all your business is a collection of different systems. So you've got a system for client acquisition, you've got a system for client delivery or results delivery or client retention, and then you've got systems for finances and operations. That's really all there is to it. It's acquiring clients, it's keeping clients or getting clients results, and making sure that those two systems run properly with operations systems. What you can start to do in your business is you can start to look at your company in these little compartments and in these little components and recognize that if the business is failing or not doing well, it's usually just because one system is out of whack and out of order. And so when people look at business and they try and approach business, they look at building this massive, scary thing that doesn't make sense. But really all you've got to do is just build one little system at a time. And what we can do is we can take this abstraction of these three systems, being acquisition, retention, and operations, and we can extrapolate those out into subsystems. And so if we take the client acquisition system component of the business, we have a lead nurturing system. We have a positive reply system to get people to actually give us attention. We have an appointment booking system like Calendly or a funnel. We have a discovery system for our sales process, right? We have a pitch system for our sales process and an objection handling system for our sales process. Then we have a payment processing system and we have an onboarding system. And so what looks like this big scary thing, like, oh, I've got to fix client acquisition, is actually just a collection of things that, if you take them apart, are quite easy. And this is why if you're a general fighting a war, you focus on winning the battles, not the entire war. Because if you win all the little battles and you give the right ones enough attention, you measure out your asymmetries accordingly, then you win the war. But what a lot of people do in business, they see this massive, big, scary task of building this entire massive thing, when in reality, it's very easy to figure out these little things if you build them step by step. Second to that is the science and using the scientific method to test and experiment. There's a lot of value in using the scientific method and learning the scientific method and how to run empirical, logical, scientific tests, because you will almost always arrive at the answer that you're looking for if you just give it enough iterations. And if you're wondering if that's true or not, you don't have to look much further than evolution and the human body and how we've evolved today. So yeah, I just thought I'd just record this quick 10-minute video just to explain like the 4 key lessons. Or to be honest, I could make 50 of these videos. I've probably learned hundreds of things from Sam that have made me a multi-millionaire, but these are 4 that came to the top of my mind today that I thought might be relatively valuable to you. By the way, if you are a agency owner, coach, consultant, or course seller, and you need my help getting more clients, as in you don't have enough clients and you want more, there's a link in the description you can click. You probably don't care about it, but if you want more clients, click it. See you soon. Bye-bye.